The village of Mwanzo nestled in the dry plains of Kenya. Red dust swirled and the air shimmered under the relentless sun. At the heart of Mwanzo stood a majestic baobab tree. Its massive trunk, a silent testament to time, held the village's stories. This tree was life. Juma, a young man with eyes as bright as the morning sun, called this place home. He grew up under the baobab's watchful gaze. Juma played in its shadow, listened to the elders' tales. The baobab was more than a tree, it was the village heartbeat. Juma would often touch the baobab's bark. It felt rough yet comforting. He dreamt of a world beyond the horizon. He yearned for knowledge, for a way to help his people. Juma carried the village's hopes on his young shoulders. Life in Mwanzo revolved around the seasons. The people revered the land, they lived in harmony with nature. The baobab tree was a central gathering place. It provided shade from the scorching sun. Under its canopy, stories unfolded. Juma listened intently to the elders. Their voices, rich with wisdom, painted pictures of the past. They spoke of a time when the rains were plentiful and the land yielded bountiful harvests. The baobab, they said, held the spirits of their ancestors. The elders spoke of resilience, of courage. They instilled in Juma a deep respect for their traditions. Juma cherished these moments under the baobab's shade. He absorbed their stories. He knew these tales held the key to his village's future. The seasons began to change. The rains became unpredictable. The once fertile land yielded less. Hunger cast a shadow over Mwanzo. The baobab too felt the strain. Its leaves wilted. The whispers of the ancestors seemed to echo Juma's growing concern. He witnessed the suffering in his village. He saw the despair in his parents' eyes. The stories of abundance felt like a distant memory. But Juma refused to give in to despair. He knew he had to find a way to help. He clung to the elders' words. They taught him that hope could bloom even in the driest desert. Juma believed in his heart that he could make a difference. Juma found solace in his studies. He walked miles to the nearest schoolhouse. Each step fueled his determination. He knew education was his weapon against poverty and hunger. He excelled in his classes. His teachers recognized his potential. They encouraged him to dream big. Juma devoured books under the dim kerosene lamp. He dreamt of a future where his village would thrive again. He wanted to bring back knowledge. He wanted to heal his land. News of a scholarship opportunity reached Mwanzo. It was a chance to attend university in the city. Juma saw a flicker of hope. It was a daunting prospect. Leaving his village would be difficult. But he knew this was his chance to make a real difference. Section 5. A seed takes root. The entire village rallied behind Juma. They pooled their meager resources to help him on his journey. They saw in him the potential for a brighter future. Their hopes and dreams traveled with him. Juma boarded the bus to the city. He left behind the familiar comfort of the baobab's shade. The city overwhelmed him. The noise, the crowds, the towering buildings were a stark contrast to his village life. It was a different world. Fear threatened to consume him. He clung to the memory of the baobab. It grounded him. He found solace in his studies. He excelled in his classes. He learned about modern farming techniques. He studied sustainable development. He absorbed knowledge like a sponge. He never forgot his roots. He carried the spirit of the baobab in his heart. Section 6. Journey into the concrete jungle. Despite his academic success, Juma struggled to adapt to city life. It felt cold and impersonal. He missed the warmth of his community. The baobab's absence felt like a physical ache. The city lights seemed to dim the stars he knew so well. He felt the weight of his village's expectations. He knew they were pinning their hopes on his success. He couldn't afford to falter. He persevered through loneliness and financial constraints. He clung to his dream of returning home and making a difference. He found solace in connecting with other students from rural backgrounds. They shared similar stories, similar struggles. They understood the longing for home, the pull of their roots. Together they formed a support system. They reminded each other why they were there. Section 7. The Weight of Two Worlds. Years passed. Juma excelled in his studies. He earned his degree in agriculture. The city had taught him much. He learned about new technologies. He understood the complexities of the world. But he never forgot the lessons learned under the baobab tree. He returned to Mwanzo a changed man. He carried with him the weight of two worlds. He saw the familiar landscape through new eyes. The poverty seemed more stark, the effects of the drought more devastating, but he also saw hope. He saw potential for change. He was greeted with cheers and celebrations. He was their son, their beacon of hope. They hung on to his every word. Juma knew the real work was just beginning. He was determined to use his knowledge to breathe life back into his land. Section 8. Echoes of the Baobab. Juma gathered the villagers under the familiar shade of the baobab tree. It was time to share his knowledge. He spoke of new farming techniques. He emphasized the importance of water conservation. He shared ideas for creating sustainable livelihoods. He knew change wouldn't be easy. He understood the resistance to new ideas. He needed to win their trust. He needed to make them understand that change was necessary for their survival. He appealed to their ancestral wisdom. He reminded them of their ancestors' resilience. He taught them how to diversify their crops. He introduced drought-resistant seeds. He showed them how to build small irrigation systems. Juma didn't just bring knowledge, he brought hope. Section 9. Seeds of Change. Juma's efforts slowly started to bear fruit. The villagers embraced his ideas. They saw the benefits of his knowledge. The once barren land began to yield crops again. Water conservation methods replenished their wells. He helped them set up a cooperative to sell their produce. He facilitated access to microloans. He worked tirelessly to improve their lives. The spirit of the baobab, the spirit of resilience, was rekindled. He saw hope flickering in their eyes. He felt a sense of accomplishment. He knew this was just the beginning. The fight against poverty, against climate change, was a long one. But for now, he had planted the seeds of change. Section 10. The Unending Drought. Despite their efforts, the challenges remained. The specter of climate change loomed large. The drought continued to grip the land. Juma witnessed firsthand the devastating impact of unpredictable weather patterns. He felt a sense of helplessness. He knew his knowledge and efforts were not enough to combat the larger forces at play. He felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He questioned his ability to make a lasting difference. He saw the fear returning to their eyes. The progress they had made felt fragile. Juma found himself struggling with a profound sense of sadness. He sought solace under the baobab tree. Section 11. The Baobab's Resilience. Juma leaned against the rough bark of the baobab. He closed his eyes, seeking solace in its ancient presence. The tree had weathered countless storms, countless droughts. It stood as a symbol of resilience, of enduring strength. He remembered the stories of his ancestors. They too had faced hardship. They too had struggled to survive. But they never gave up. They adapted. They persevered. They found ways to live in harmony with nature. Juma opened his eyes. He felt a renewed sense of determination. He wouldn't give up. He would continue to fight for his village, for his people's future. He would find new ways to combat the challenges they faced. He would honor the legacy of the baobab, the legacy of his ancestors. He would never stop hoping for a brighter future.